All right, everybody. It's go time. So even though the Rob Tui theme did not quite have time to play all the way through, that's okay. Everyone will be fine. That is the Rob Tui theme, courtesy of Leroon. One of our normal hosts who will not be here this evening. He might be in the chat, but he's not going to be on the broadcast with us. But I do have Fury Fate with me here this evening. How are you, Fury?
I'm doing good. I'm so happy to be with you guys again.
Excellent. Yeah, Fury's got a little bit of a nose cold, everybody. So everybody give her a break. Calm down. Don't be mean. And then our special guest this evening.
Cheerbits in the stream.
There
Thanks
he
for the
is.
cheerbits.
Cheerbits. Fantasy Grounds College has interrupted me once again during my speech. Our special guest this evening is Celestian. How are you, sir?
Doing great.
Awesome. That's good to hear. We're going to give the disclaimer, and then we'll get right into it. So everybody just remember that our Sunday night show here, All Things Fantasy Grounds Talk Show, is not meant to be the opinions from Smiteworks, the company, or from Fantasy Grounds. It is just meant to teach and help, and is only our three little opinions. So it's nothing official. Nobody sue us. So I'm going to go ahead and change the screen over so that you guys can see what we see. And then first thing I'm going to do is just ask Celestian to kind of introduce himself, let everybody know who doesn't know who you are in relation to Fantasy Grounds and so forth and so
on. Well, I am just a lowly coder that found Fantasy Grounds after running across Tabletop Connect, I think it was. It's the thing that Carl was working on that he got picked up by Fantasy Grounds. So they kind of got my attention because of that. And from that, I've just kind of dove headlong into it and been pretty happy with what I can do with it. So been a big fan ever since.
Cool.
The things that I'm going to try to cover tonight is going to be just a overview of kind of reference manuals. If you're familiar with those, they're kind of books within Fantasy Grounds, and then maybe a little deeper dive into getting started with mostly modifying a rule set, not writing your own, but I mean you can take that and make it your own.
Cool. And for those of you that don't know, Celestian did mention Tabletop Connect, which was owned by Carl Pender, and that was like a 3D environment for RPGs that basically Doug Davison he acquired that and folded it into Smiteworks and hired Carl, and that's who's been, they've been working on the new Unity engine stuff. And for those of you that haven't heard, there is going to be an alpha build by the end of August is the projection. It's not a promise, but Doug himself did say that on Friday, that the alpha build is scheduled to be the end of August. And then if they get that going and everything's going right, they're going to do the Kickstarter. And so it's happening, people. The U word is happening, and Carl's a big part of that. Good. So welcome to the show, sir. And we are going to give away a prize, by the way, everybody. So stay tuned throughout the show. At a random time, I will give away a prize, and that prize is going to be anything you want that has my name on it on the DMs Guild, and that includes packages. So if you guys want to start scouring the DMs Guild and looking through what you might want, if you win, you will be able to pick any one item, and you'll get that for free. So yeah, go right ahead, Celestian. I'm looking at your desktop here, so you can just do what you'd like to do and let us know the information.
All right, so the first thing I want to
cheerbits,
go over is
cheerbits in the stream. Thanks for the cheerbits.
And I sent these to Rob, so maybe he can paste them because last time I tried, I couldn't do it. But there is a wiki for reference manuals. It is woefully inadequate, if you ask me, but it's a good start. Most of the stuff that you will need to know if you want to do inline images and other things, I don't think it even includes that kind of stuff. You'll have to peruse the forums and find it. But what I'm going to show you as far as what I can do with it, I wrote a extension called Author that lets you take story entries and create pretty useful reference manuals. And then once you've got your reference manual base done, you can go in there and manually change it if you want to add any inline images and stuff like that. So I will start with what I've got here on my desktop. This is just a campaign. It's my builder campaign for Temple of Elemental Evil I've been working on. And you can see lots of story entries. This is bazillions of them. But the way author works is it takes categories, story categories, these up here. And if you organize them based on the chapter of the book, and that's what this is doing, when you export it as using author, it will make each one of these is a chapter. So everything underneath it will be organized as a chapter. You can also do subchapters within these, like the Moat House. And you can see there's a tag called sub, and author will pick that up whenever you export it. And then when you view it, it'll be a sub chapter within a chapter. And none of this is really going to make a lot of sense until you see the end result. But
so that's kind of small. It's kind of hard to see. But so on the second entry there, it says upper level, and then like sideways caret. I don't know what you call that. It's not a bracket. What is that? Sideways caret is all I know it as. Oh, well, I guess
greater
less
than,
than.
less than.
Yeah, great. So
Greater
less than, and then sub, and then greater than. And if you put that, then your author extension knows to say, hey, this is a thing where you got to move it over here and do that with it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I document this on the link that I gave you. It kind of explains how all this does and does a really image-based overview. But yes, so
Okay, cool.
what we'll do is I will do an export, or not an export. It's an /author.
Right. So for those of you that are familiar with exporting your campaign, you do /export, and then if you have the author extension in, you do /author instead, and it gives you what he's done here. So you'll see it.
Yeah, so I brought up author and the export menu because I do both of these, and the reason I do both of these is because the way extensions work, I only have a certain amount of access to the Fantasy Grounds API with code. So I can't actually, what I would like to do is do an export, but do it using author entirely, but I can't. It doesn't let me do certain things with maps. It doesn't let me do other things. So the way I do it is I will export the module like I normally would, which select all these options and then export it. And then on this particular part, I wouldn't select any of these. You can if you want, but we're not going to use those parts. And whenever you export, use an author. Just real quick. It'll prompt you for a path. And if you'll notice here, I just created one called AD author T124. And I'm going to select the DBXML.
So now, my question would be: are you, if you use regular /export and make the file, then when you do the author and just check the ones on the top, is it writing into the export file, or is it a separate file?
It's actually a separate file, and that's kind of what I'm going to show. I'm going to go ahead and do. I can't hold my mouse push to talk and click these, so I'm going to click them and then come back.
All right. While he's doing that, thanks, Leroon, for the cheer bits. I saw that you cheered again. Thank you, sir. Cheer bits, everybody. So yeah, so he's going to select. That's good. That's by the way, that's good. What do you call it? Not standard. Best practice. When you export modules, even if you're not, what I do is I check every single one of those, like Celestian just did. Even if you're not exporting something, because Fantasy Grounds, if you're exporting effects but you don't have effects, it'll just be blank, so it won't matter. But it's better to check more than less. So that's just a best practice.
Absolutely. So we saw how I did the author export. It prompted me where it wanted to put the db.xml. It also creates another file which we're not going to use, but I'll show you when we get there. And now I'll just export using the module export. This is something that I know Rob is familiar with, this exporting.
Yeah, that's right. I do that every
now
day.
we've got the two files. And the Temple of Elemental Evil one. Oops. There. Okay, so this is the export I just made with the module exporter. The thing is it doesn't include our reference manual, but it's got everything else that we want to use. So if you want to view these, you can unzip them because the mods are just a zip file renamed as a mod. Have my UI or WinZip, or I can't remember, 7-zip, recognize it as just a zip file, so I can just double click it and open it, or right click and export. But I'm not going to do that.
Ooh,
I'm
I
just going
didn't
to
know
show
you
you.
could do that with 7-zip. I need to set that. That's awesome. I go through the extra step every time.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. So you can just right click and unzip it into your directory. I've already done this on the thing that I want to show you, but I wanted to show the people what you see here. Is this db.xml. See, the export created the exact same file with all these images and all this other stuff in there that you've been working on in your story and your characters, your NPCs, your spells, whatever it is that you're putting into the module. All that stuff is great. It doesn't make the reference manual. But the author tool, it created the db.xml. I'm sorry, I can't remember if I pushed the button to talk there. But what it
You know
does
what?
is it
If it's
creates.
easier for you, you can change your Discord to not push to talk, and then that way you won't have to worry about it. If you want to do that, that's fine.
Alrighty. Is that better?
Yep.
Thank you.
That'll be easier
Yeah,
for
because
you, right?
my push to talk is back in Notepad, and so it was changing pages on me. So what author did is it created a single entry right here, and you'll recognize this later. But what it does is in the list in your library, when you load this module, you'll see an entry called author table or Temple of Elemental Evil. But what I do is the piece that you want for your actual module is this right here, that one little piece. That's it. And so what you will do is you will take let's see, where am I? I will open up the Temple of Elemental Evil section as well. And you can see I've already pasted it in here, but that's all you would do is you would paste this reference section that's also in here over to here.
So now
And
I
then,
think what's confusing me is you've minimized, like, that reference section isn't just that one line. It's like hundreds of lines, right?
right, these are each chapters, and then within each chapter you'll have subchapters, and within those will be pages, and then within those pages will be actual links to your encounter ID, which is your story. So this one would go back to story entry number 30. And if we want to go up here, I'll show you if I can find it. There it is, 30 right there.
Okay,
That's
so
the actual text
when you're
that will show up for that
copying
one.
the reference manual over to the regular mod, you're copying everything from the tag reference down to /reference. Is that right?
Right, correct.
Which could
Yeah,
be like
all you need.
3,500 lines.
Yeah, and I mean, if you wanted to break it all out, you certainly could, but it's a lot of it would just be a wall of
Right,
text.
that's a
In this
better,
case, the
the way
module is
you have
very
it now
big.
is a better picture of it, because you can see the reference tag, and then down at the bottom of the highlighted section is /reference. Everything between that is what was in the author module that you grab it and put it into your regular module, and then there you go.
Correct.
Awesome.
The other thing that you need to do is this section right here. This is the link to the reference manual. If you notice where it says reference manual index up here,
Yeah.
there's reference, and then there's reference manual index. See how they both kind of refer?
Gotcha.
It's a dot reference down to each, like that would be reference manual index dot chapters. That's, I mean, if you wanted to reference it like that. But so what we're doing is we want to take this section up here and put it in your exported module so that you can have a link to your reference index down there on the bottom. And I've done that over here too, so I don't mess it up. Stuff up and get back to the library section here. You're going to note that I changed the name here. See how it's A0001 instead of over here it was ID dash. And the reason you do that is because the the way it loads things, it loads it in alphabetical order. And so if you don't put this there, this won't be at the top. And I prefer to have the link to the reference manual right at the top. That's the first thing anybody's going to want. So if you do
Okay.
that,
That's a good tip. I had no idea. I mean, I use Notepad++, but I'm no expert on XML. But I did not know that it loads them alphabetically, so that's really awesome. So sometimes when you open a Fantasy Grounds module, those things are not in the order you would think they would be in, and if you wanted to change that, you could just go in and change the tags to be in the order, you know, A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you would did, and then they would appear in that order. Is that what you're saying?
absolutely correct. Yes.
Yeah, nice. Oh man, that's a good. Oh man, I'm learning so much already. So by the way, anybody watching and you're going, oh, what the fuck is this XML? What are we even looking at? So this would be if you're making Fantasy Grounds modules and you want to do, if you're just wanting to play, you probably would never look in this, but this is for those of you that want to make modules or make your own reference manuals and rule sets we're going to talk about in a while. This is excellent information. This is a video you'll want to rewatch over and over probably.
All right. So now that we've got our entry, our link to our reference down here, I'm going to go to another version of Fantasy Grounds I have running here. And we'll look at the library. And I've already loaded up selected the module. You can load it yourself. But that's the one I have loaded.
Okay.
And when you select it, you'll see there it is. Boom. Temple Elemental reference manuals at the top. Here's all the other junk that's included in it. You know, all your encounters, pre-gen
Pre-gens, bam, 3.3.6. We love it. We love it.
All the images. So it works just like you expect it, except for this part. Now you have all this in a reference manual format. You can flip through that. It's got all the subchapters. We'll go to the remote house, and if you remember, I showed you upper level was a sub level or a sub. You can see it's still up in there.
Yeah.
But you'd select that and just page to it. I don't know how useful it is for an actual adventure module. I think Fantasy Grounds or Smiteworks is going to this kind of style for their stuff. But I don't know. It's very useful, at least for me.
I want to try to make use of it because, you know, there's a lot of stuff. They really want the reference manuals to be a part of what's happening because it's just a lot nicer for people. It looks better. So they are totally moving toward doing that. And the developers that, you know, when we do stuff, they ask you to do it. And if you can't do it, they'll come back behind you and do it. Like James did that on one of my, I turned in a module for one of the Frog God games ones. I turned it in and he goes, hey, I hope you don't mind, but I added a reference manual to it. And I said, mind, you know, like, thanks a lot for doing my job. And but they have a proprietary reference manual thing. It's kind of a top secret. They're not letting it out. It basically does what yours does. And I'm going to ask you to talk about the limitations because theirs does graphics and everything else, but the author extension has a few limitations. Is that right? Like I know you can't do inline graphics.
Right. So basically what author can do for you out of the box is anything you can do in a story entry right there, it'll support. It'll work fine with it. Any links that you put in there, any formatting, bold, italics, tables, all that junk, it works just fine. The only thing it can't do, because the stories don't support it, is inline images.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's a thing. I mean, they're probably with Unity, they're probably not even worried about fixing or making stuff awesome. That's, you know, they're worried about the future. Because what I was thinking in my head is, I wonder if they ever thought about supporting inline images. Because what I just found out the other day is that formatted text, which you can do in the story entries, you can't do inside of an item, or the other one slips my mind right now, but there was something that I was working on. No, I think spells you can do. Maybe it is spells. But I was working, oh no, I know what it is. It's class features. So if you open up the feature of a class, you can't do it there either. And the problem is I was working on something that needed to be able to alter the formatting, and it wouldn't do it. So I went and put it on the wish list. But, you know, now that Unity's going to come out, they're going to change everything. You know, I don't know what the format, I haven't seen Unity. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm assuming it's just going to be awesome. That's what I do. I just assume everything's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
But
I'm not sure you can't do formatted text in items because right there, I mean, there's bold, there's tables. They may have
um,
been talking about something else. I'm not exactly sure what they're talking about, but yeah, you can do formatted text in. I mean, this is just an item with bold and tables and stuff.
yeah,
But as far as
it was something I was trying to work with either the inline table thing. Remember, I think I even PM'd you and you were like, "That's not me, that's the other guy." And then I got
yeah, it
confused.
was.
But
Yeah.
I couldn't. It wouldn't work in. Maybe it wasn't items. And I have such a bad memory. I have to go back and try to recreate it. But anyway, suffice to say, this is just like super cool stuff and
Well,
really useful for people.
there is a solution that I could do to get around it. I'm just trying to keep from having to teach people how to do specific codes. Like I could, have you type hash image colon and then the link to the image, and then with another hash on the end of it, and then search for that and replace it whenever I export. But I'm not a big fan of that. I like it to actually do what it's supposed to do in the thing, and then when you
Yeah,
export it, it works. So I
I
haven't
agree.
really I haven't went that direction because, like you, I am waiting for Unity. So when
Yeah,
Unity gets here, if it's not there, I will look into doing something like that. But right now, it's not huge on my priority list because most of this stuff is you, me, and 3 other people would be interested to know
right.
reference manuals.
I mean, there are about 70 developers for Smiteworks, but um, they and some of them have been doing it way longer. I've been doing it for like a year and I don't know 14 months, May of 17 maybe. But a lot of people have been doing it for years and years and years and years, and they've got their ways and they just make it work. And let's just see what happens in a few months when everything changes. But
So,
yeah, this is really cool.
all right, so um, unless there's any other questions on reference manuals, and again, I just give a overview on how to use Author, mainly because I hate reference manuals. I hate it, and that's why I wrote Author, because I didn't want to have to do it.
Yeah, it's a
It's
pain
a
in the
lot of
ass
XML.
without. It's a lot of crap if you don't have this, and this thing has made everybody's life easier. And I thank you,
Yeah.
1,000
Yeah.
times.
I mean, as a
If
player, I don't program at all because I would crash the whole system. But I mean, as a player, I love looking at the reference manuals because I find that I can find the information a little bit easier than if I were to like go through all the different story entries, which is weird considering it's almost the same exact thing. But I just like the format of the reference manual better.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
agree.
If you guys have questions in the chat, go ahead and type them, and we'll get them answered. Um, but yeah, so from me to you, and from everybody to you, probably who even wants to get involved with this, thank you so much, because the author extension just really speeds everything up and makes it so that you can do a thing that you otherwise would have to have used parse or open XML and go write it yourself and just all kinds of crazy shit that nobody wants to do. So it's awesome.
Alrighty.
Cool.
So the other bit, I guess, is to maybe dive down into the rule set stuff.
Yeah, and I put those links in the chat, and I'll put them again. I'll put them all again in here. Oh, I guess you can't copy out of that thing. Well, that's a bull. Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, I can do it right here. So this was that's the wiki for the reference manuals.
No,
The
this, well,
next
yes,
the
the
next
one I'm
one
showing is the developer's
is
guide for the rule set.
right, and then this one is. Oh, I'm just reposting that. That one's author extension. This one is the developer guide. And the last one, I haven't got to the other ones yet, but the last one I have is the reference doc. So you guys can make note of those links or write them down or copy them or whatever you have to do. And Neviolo
Did
says just to be sure, you can't have inline images yet with author, but you can if you hack the XML directly. Right? Yeah, he referred to that.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's what I was saying. Get it all done in the story as far as you can. Get everything finished, and then export it all. and then go in and change the XML to have the image inline the way you're looking for it.
Right. And keep in mind too, guys, this has happened to me. Like for example, I did Monsters of the Guild and Monsters Without Borders this way. I made the module with NPC Engineer, and then I went back in and put in the reference manual. And once you do that, once you do manual XML and you alter the structure of that file, you can then never go back and export the thing because it's already, you're past that point. And if you went back to export it, it would wipe out all your reference manual stuff. So once you create that, you can't go back. So just keep that in mind.
So did you make like multiple save files just in case you fucked up?
Oh, you're goddamn right I did. Original save / non-mistake / August 27th / version 1. You know, I was so paranoid because I would just do crazy shit and have to go back 3 versions. But that's because when I was doing it, I was doing it, but I was also learning how to do it. So I made many mistakes and I was like, oh, that's why that didn't work. And I didn't know the thing that Celestian referred to about the alphabetization of the links in the library, but I did find out that you have to have there has to be a library link, or the information will be in the module, but when you open it in the library, there won't be a link to click on to go to it. So it's like separate thing. It's funny how if you just crack open any module in an XML editor like Notepad++ or whatever, and you look at it, it's seemingly everything that's in the module is in there 3 and 4 times. And you're like, why is this all doubled up like this? But it's because certain things reference certain places, and if you open in the library, or if you open in the story entry, or if you open the window itself, you know, it's just all different places. It's really kind of complicated. But once you get what's happening, it's sort of like, for me, I don't know other people, and I'm not necessarily a coder per se, but like I don't do programming languages or anything like that. I did when I was younger, but I've long since forgotten all that stuff. But once you look at it, for me anyway, the light bulb went on, and I'm like, oh, that's how that works, and all this, you know, and instead of a sea of numbers, letters, and symbols, it becomes like structured information that you can follow and understand. But it might take a while to for people. I guess my message here is, don't be intimidated. If you want to do this stuff, you can do it, because in the way I know that is, if I can do it, anybody can do it, literally.
We do have a quick question. Was one of those links how to get the author extension, or is that a different, or is there a different place
it's
to go to?
it's the one that says project author at the end of the link. That's the one. So, and that's going to be sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Nebuleo, whatever his name, I can't see.
Nebbiolo.
But he was saying use Git. Git is awesome for what you're talking about, version control. I use it a lot. I mean, that's kind of what I depend on. But yes,
yeah,
as far as saving things,
GitHub, is that what that is?
GitHub, GitLab, both of them. I actually have found that GitLab is a little better because I can make private repos there, versus GitHub. You can, but you got to pay per month. So.
Okay, +1 for Git, Mikolog says. So I've looked at GitHub, and I don't think GitLab, but I don't know what it is, but websites where you go there and it's just all text and it looks like 1994 to me, that somehow melts my brain, and I can't like lock into it and learn how to use it. So I've gone to Git a few times, especially for other projects that people do, and I just have a negative attitude about it, and my brain shuts off and I go away and I don't come back. So now that you guys have said that, I'm going to give it another shot, and I'm going to go there and try and learn how to use that, because I do know a lot of people talk about it. So I'll check that out. Yeah, Corvette says save often. That's right.
Yes. The other thing that I use, if you start using GitLab, GitHub, either one of those, I use a tool called GitKraken, spelled with a K like the monster. And it's got a Mac and a PC version, and it's used for managing your repos. It's GUI based, so you don't need to know all the funky command lines. My day job, I'm a Unix admin, and I have to know all that stuff. But God, if I can get away from it, use Git Kraken if you have a choice.
Cool. Cool.
I guess we're ready to talk about rule sets now.
Yeah, so this is where, I mean, I'd used your author extension. I know a little bit about it, but this is going to be totally brand new stuff for me. So whatever you say here.
One of the things that Rob was saying is that some of this stuff is pretty big. Takes a while to pick up, but if it's something that you want, you can do it. A year ago, I think it was January 2017 for me. I knew nuts. I didn't know Lua. I'd messed with it before. My day job, I program, and I picked up Fancy Grounds, and I took the base code of 5e and started hacking it to figure it out. So it took me a year before I thought I was comfortable enough to do what I wanted to do. But it does take a while. It is pretty complicated in some points, but if it's something you really want to do, you can do it. It just you got to take the time to do it. And the best place to start is the Wiki Developers Guide. They've got a lot of information here, and I can't go over all of it. The stuff that I'm going to try to cover is just high level, top level, very beginning stuff to start out. And I would definitely start here on this site. The other side is the reference manual link, which is, I think this is it right here. Yes. And this right now won't mean a lot to you, but these particular links go to sections that are actual function calls that you can make within Lua. And right now that's probably well above most people's head that we're talking to. But that's, once you get to past the really high level stuff, you start getting into that. But I'm not really going to cover that. We're going to talk about layering, the base XML, what extensions are and rule sets and that kind of stuff. But so people may be more familiar with extensions where somebody will write an extension that changes something or gives you an option in your campaign settings. And honestly, rule sets are a lot like that, especially when you layer them on top of something like Core RPG, which I would absolutely recommend you do. Always layer it on top of that, because the base code in that is they keep and maintain, and you don't have to sit there and futz with your own code from the ground up.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll try and remember my question. Go ahead.
Okay. So the similarities between extensions and rule sets is the rule set is just by its nature far more complex. It's not just changing one thing; it's changing a lot. And if you layer it on top of something like the way I did with my rule set, it changes a lot of the code, and you'll want to start somewhere. And generally it's going to be something called base XML. And and I probably should have covered this, but let me open up the set. These pack files are like the mod files. They're nothing but zip files.
Okay.
Containing the rule set itself. Like right here is the core RPG. I renamed them because, and this is something that as a developer you're going to learn really quick. If you use the same name as the pack file, it's going to use this one. So if you want to have if you want to use the original and you want to have one that you modify to kind of see what changes, don't name it the same. I always just stuck a ridge on the end of it. But
okay.
The core RPG.
Yeah, it's the same as if you have a zipped module in your if you have a mod file in your modules folder, but you also have it unpacked in a regular file folder.
Right.
And they're different. It's going to use the unpacked version first. And I got caught I'm like, why doesn't this work? I made the change 6 times. Well, because I didn't delete it. Yeah, so I know about that little.
So
my question was going to be, before you do that, my question was going to be, so when you make a rule set, you say layer it on top like Core RPG. So do you take all of Core RPG, and that's your starting point, and then you go in and make changes and additions? Is that kind of how you do it?
No, that is for another part. But let me kind of cover this real quick, and then I'll show you how it layers. But the core RPG.pack file, this is the contents, all these directories, all these files. This is all the code. You don't more than likely want to change any of this, but there is this file right here called base.xml. That is what everything is loaded. That's like the main config file for the rule set. It's where it gets all the XML and all the Lewis code. All that is defined there, where it is, where it's loaded, how it's loaded, order it's loaded, that kind of thing.
Okay.
That's all sounds really confusing, but I needed to say that so that whenever I show you this one, this is the base.xml that I use. And I started out with the 5e version. I went in here and changed this to fit my needs. And you can see right here, this is the layer part. That's all you do to include Core RPG right there.
Okay, so you bring that in with that line, and then it just adjusts everything else you make on top of that. I see.
Right. And so what will happen is, unless you override it, it will use the functions, the scripts and whatnot from the Core RPG base code.
Okay.
You can't, I think you can layer it on multiple, like if you wanted to layer it on top of Core RPG and then 5e and then have something on top of that, you can. I've never done it. Mine has only just been, my own layered on top of Core RPG. And doing that, I just took the 5e version of the 5e pack file that's down here. I unzipped it. And started with the file, which would be this directory of all these different files, these scripts, these XMLs. And again, I can't really cover all that because it's a lot of, there's a lot of different code. But
so just on the point of how this all works, I know before the show I was telling you about how there was this one thing called Heroes Without Mask, and it was 5e based, but it had extra things in it. So what I might do if I decided to tackle that one day is make my own rule set, bring in the 5e rule set, and then add these 3 extra things that you need in there. Is kind of the whole
right.
The one paragraph explanation of how I would do it.
Yeah, I think you'd need to layer it as Core RPG, then 5e, and then yours would be on top of those two. Again, I'm not
5 yeah, 5e goes on top of Core. Everything's Core RPG, right?
Right. I don't know if it would actually include Core RPG by default in a separate, if you're doing like what I'm doing here. If you're doing this,
so I do
if you're making your own rule set on top of it, yeah.
Right. Core RPG, 5e, and then whatever mine is. Yeah, okay, got it. Wow. Yeah, and it's a lot it's a lot to learn. But imagine what you can do. I mean, anybody that wants to make a game in Fantasy Grounds, well, it's possible. You just have to learn how to do it.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you where I started. So first thing I wanted to do was mess with characters, and I'll load up this basic one here. And this doesn't look like the 5e one. It does a little bit. If you wanted to change the way something here looked, you wouldn't even know where to start. You'd look at that and say, where am I going to start? So what I did is look at titles. These things, they don't change. And then do a search for class and level. And that sounds dumb and simple, but this will work. I'm going to search in all my files. And this is a reason that you'll want to use Notepad++. It's great. What I'm doing is I'm searching through the rule set, which in this case will be yours. I'm using mine. I'm searching for the string class and level. Let's see where it's at. Not anywhere.
What?
Oh, I'm searching in just Lewis. I'm not searching in everything. This should do it then.
Yes, this is very much reverse engineer for the win.
Yeah, it totally is.
Yeah, so basically, and I probably picked the wrong one because that ampersand is an XML code. So yeah.
Let's just
how about this?
Oh, like AMP65 semicolon, whatever the hell it is.
I want to find something. If not, I'll just go to the strings file. But basically what I do is I find where the string appears, and then I find where that, like right here, that's the one I'm looking for. This whole bit right here is a variable that holds the string combat, which is what appears right there. And that sounds, but now you know where to start. You've got this variable name, And then you do from there as you find it in the files. It's just you're breadcrumbing to get to where you need to go.
Yeah, I get it, man. That's brilliant.
And then that would be label mod comment. But anyways, and you would find, and I'm not, some of this code is not gonna make sense to you guys, but you would find section somewhere, because I know where it's at, and I'm cheating. But you'll come into this section, and it'll look different in 5e if you use that as your base starting code, which Fantasy Grounds is happily allows people to modify the 5e rule set for your own needs. As long as it's, if you want to give it away, you can. I don't think you can. As far as selling something, you have to work a deal with them. But,
yeah, I don't think you can do that without permission.
Right. But as long as it's free, they're perfectly happy. But yeah, basically what you're doing is you're just looking for variable names and getting to the point to where you need to be. Like all these, like care, label, surprise, that's just the surprise for here, this section. And it seems kind of complicated, but that's, you got to start somewhere. And unless you're a genius, you're not going to know, looking at this page, where to start. At this point, you know, I know where most of these tab pages are. It takes a while to learn it. Don't get overwhelmed. Just start small. The first thing I did was just started doing simple adjustments to the character sheet on the front. I mean, that was it. You know, changing it to where I had percentiles and stuff like that.
That's cool. So have you, the second edition D&D, are you done with it? Is it finished?
Rule set wise, I'm happy with it. There are some things that I would like to fine tune. Most of my work right now is putting towards doing the reference manuals for it, all the player's handbook and all the DM's guides and various things like that. And I've got most of those done as well. And I would love if WotC would let SmiteWorks license it. So if you have any voice with WotC or SmiteWorks, let them know that you want, you know, AD&D through SmiteWorks. No, I don't mean to, you know.
That would be good for you, because if they license it, you've already got it built, and you could be like, hey.
Yeah. So.
Right.
But I'm not sure what else to cover, because there's just, it's pretty complicated. There's a lot of things that to cover, and I just can't cover it all. But the start thing is, like I said, find the string of text, go to there, look at it, see what the XML does. My biggest bane, my kryptonite is all, you know, XML, getting the page, you know, the stuff aligned the way it's supposed to be, making it appear the way it's supposed to be. I'm constantly throwing it off to one side, and you can't even see it, and I've got to sit there and play with it. It's not my favorite thing, but Lua code.
Yeah, so for anybody that's thinking about you know, making a rule set, or you've got a game you want to convert so that Fantasy Grounds can do it, which is a very noble and awesome thing to try to do. He's already said it, and I'll second it. Don't let this intimidate you. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of research. It's going to be a shit ton of trial and error. But if you go in and read about how the rule sets are made, go in and search for your strings, replace one thing at a time, test it out, you know, eventually you'll get there. And whatever game you want to make happen that, you know, there isn't already a rule set for, because the community's built, I don't know, 50 rule sets. If you go to the wiki, there's a rule set page, and it's got them all: Age of Empire, the Star Wars and Star Trek, they're all in there. I mean, this is a massive amount. But oddly, nobody's done AD&D until Celestian decided to work on it.
Okay, so how do you change the character sheet tabs?
Right here.
Main
all
skills.
These subs.
Yep.
And this is my rule set. It looks the same in the 5e stuff. The names may be a little different, but by and large, they're exactly the same. There are, and it's not something I can just tell you off the bat, because there's a lot of things that connect back. Like this goes back to main here, which is also a sub. and the sub is so you can scroll. I think that's what this particular part. It's a sub window, and then it also sets up the scrolls on that page. But if you're looking for it, it's going to be in the record_care XML. If you're looking at 5e, just look for tabs, and then go back. Almost everything I do is I walk everything back to where it come from, or you got to find a point a reference that you know what it is, and then go back from that.
Vaughn says, how about using this info to build an extension?
So almost everything is exactly the same, except for the base XML. I think it's called extension XML.
And extensions don't have anything in them except for what you're changing or adding or whatever, and it doesn't have a whole rule set in there. So an extension is probably going to be, I saw an extension. I forget what it was for. It was only like 10 lines. But I mean, there can be hundreds and thousands of lines depending on how complicated it is what you're doing. But it's the same principle behind, what you're making.
So that's the same. That's the extension XML for author, and it looks a lot the same. I mean, if you look at that, it's got the base section.
Cool.
But I mean, include file scripts. They all function the same way.
All right. I think right now is a good time to give away a prize. So let's set this up. I'm going to give away anybody that enters this that wins will be able to get any item on the DM's Guild that I sell or that has my name on it. So that includes anything that has the name. If you search Rob Toohey, anything that comes up will be able to you'll be able to get it, including a package. The only exception to that is Monsters of the Guild PDF or hardback. I do not have the power to give away for free, but I do the Fantasy Grounds module though, and that's, I'm assuming anybody watching this show, that's what they'd want anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and start a raffle. Keyword Rob. So if you want to win, type in !Rob, and we'll run a 5 minute.
Isn't that one of the chat commands too?
It might be. Let's find out. Maybe that's not going to work. No, it's working. I think if you do a chat command,
you have to enter somebody's name
it overrides it. Yeah, like for the duration of this thing, it will only use that. But yeah, so if you guys want to win any DM's Guild module that I have, then for the next 4.5 minutes, just enter on in. We'll draw us a winner. So cool. So you think you covered, I mean, I know you said you couldn't cover everything. That would be like a 15-hour seminar, and then you wouldn't even be started. But you covered all the basics there, Celestian, so I think that's pretty good. And that'll definitely give people an idea. If you want to, I mean, like we said, guys, if you want to start doing it, the thing to do is just start doing it. Just go, do it, figure it out, trial and error, poke around, screw up, and then one day you'll be like, hey, that's cool, I made this and it works. And then if you want to get really complicated and build a whole game, you'll know how to do it.
That is absolutely the best way to do it, at least for me. Somebody else may be able to dive face first into it. I don't know, but
yeah, so
the best place to ask questions as well is on the forums. They have a forum specifically for this kind of stuff. I think it's called the Workshop. And Wizard is awesome.
There's at least, there's definitely some main guys that know about this stuff, like Zacchaeus and Moon Wizard and a few of the other guys. But there's probably, I'm gonna say that I know. I mean, I don't know these people personally, but just garnering information for the last 2 years about Smiteworks and Fantasy Grounds, there's at least 100 people, and maybe way more than that are into making these kinds of things. So if you ever have a question or whatever, you're going to find somebody who can give you an answer. And everybody's pretty good about collaborating and helping each other and cross-pollinating ideas and stuff like that. So I've never done this myself yet with the rule set, and I still haven't created an extension. You know, my thing has been actually just making the actual game modules and also the codings that I've done, but that's really as far as I've gone. But this is super interesting stuff and very useful. Morecore has a roles feature. One of them is /roll-on that allows the role to access a table. Is that functionality in other rule sets? He wants to know.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh yeah, you answered him.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not super familiar with Morecore other than just kind of clicking on it and using it, seeing what's set on it. I've spoke with Dan several times about various parts of it, but not that part.
But I think that based on how these are built, you would be able to extract that functionality and put it in another rule set, would you not? You could just add it in.
Absolutely. In fact, a lot of people have written extensions that I've integrated straight into my own rule set. One of them was one that Ken wrote. It makes it so that when you open Windows within Fantasy Grounds, if you only have one story window, if you want an additional one, you hit Control left click and it'll open up two. But so that you don't have like 10 million story windows open, it'll only have one.
Yeah.
Like normally, each one of these clicks would open up, a different one, but instead it's just doing the one here. And I
Rob
took
Tui, hey,
that
this might
and
be a quick extension for you to make one with your avatar as a decal. Oh, I already have that extension actually. Somebody made that for me. My decal is my avatar is the decal on the. Well, here I'll show you guys. There's another one that I altered, which is this one, which is all things Fantasy Grounds tabletop with my thing here. But I have another one that's just that's this avatar here and it's this big and it's annoying as shit. It's the whole screen.
Yeah, so that roll on must be part of Core RPG, not Morecore.
Oh yeah, maybe it is.
Because it's showing up in mine, which is layered on Core RPG. And I could be wrong. It could be part of the base 5e stuff that I just haven't broke into, but I think it's probably Core RPG.
All right, so everybody has entered, and the 5-minute timer's out. So let me pick a prize winner here. The winner is going to be... Oh, McColog. Nice job. Congrats to McColog, who is not only a follower, but I believe also a subscriber. So there you go. So, McColog, you know the deal. Just PM me in Discord and let me know your DM's Guild email and which thing you want, and you can pick anything with my name on it. And, oh yeah, he won the other night when I did that thing too. And, oh, Janini, you're just a little too late. You didn't make it in time. But next time, we always give away at least one prize on every Sunday show, and sometimes way more than that. One day we gave away over $1,000 worth of crap. So, Mikola, congratulations. Anything else, Celestian, you'd like to say and impart your wisdom? Alexander, thanks for the follow. Anything else you want to add to all of your... and thanks, by the way, for helping us to learn all about this good stuff.
One of the things I wanted to mention, I've got it highlighted here on my window here, there is a command called debug.console. Make heavy use of this. If you aren't sure what is the variable is, or if it's even getting to your function or anything like that, if you do something like this, and this is my standard way of doing things, is the first one is the name of the file, like and in this case it's wrong because I've migrated this code, but it should be manage_char.lua, and then the name of the function, and then the name of the variable, and then the actual variable. And so what this does is whenever you have console loaded up, and this is something else I want to show them. See this down here? You want to do this. If you're doing a lot of coding, you want to have reload and console easily accessible. But in this case, we're just going to load up the console. And what happens is the debug text will appear up here, and I don't have anything prepared to show how it looks. but it's pretty self-explanatory. When that piece of code runs, it'll kick out all the string of that stuff that I listed, plus the variable and the contents of the variable. So you'll know the variable, is it not getting changed like you want it to? Is it getting changed, or is it in the wrong place? That kind of thing.
And anybody that's
else,
used Fantasy Grounds for any amount of time, you've seen that console window because you get errors for maps and whatever else happens sometimes.
Yep.
And when I do modules, I get, like tag not present in line 216, and then you go there and sure enough it didn't have a slash in it or whatever. And it really helps you to look. But this way he's proactively putting it in there to tell him what the errors might be. Now, do you have to do that just once in the file, or do you have to do that in every section?
You need to do it wherever it is that whatever you're trying to debug. This isn't something you want to leave in there either. And that's why whenever I showed this page, it was like that. It was commented out. The dash will comment out.
Right.
But if you, if you're first making the function, you're like, let me just throw, and I've got sections that just are full of debug. I mean, like this stuff, I was trying to figure out where all my variables were being set, and just, use them as much as you need. Nobody's going to know it but you. Get the variables out, look at it, and see what it is, so that you know that you're doing what you think you're doing. Because a lot of times you aren't doing what you're thinking you're doing. Something else I want to point out is code that runs as the DM has complete access to all the variables within that Fantasy Grounds has access to. If you're running that same code as a user, which in some cases you will be, the user will be running it, and they won't have access to the same database variables that the DM does. So you may hit a point to where you find something that a user's trying to change, or you wrote some code that whenever a user does something, it triggers something to change a variable for that, and it's not working. There's a couple of ways to get around it. I'm not going to go into it. Quick version is there's an OOB method, and then there's a global script. I think is what Moon Wizard calls them. I tend to lean towards the latter if I can, because they're a lot easier. But the OOBs work as well. But if you get to that point, you need to get on the forums and ask for an example and have somebody show you, because that stuff gets kind of complicated.
Right. Cool. Well, that is a great start for anybody. And I mean, anybody who watches this video that has aspirations to make an extension or rule set, or even do reference manuals that we covered earlier. They've got a great place to start. And every situation is different. Every single person that does it's going to have different challenges and different things that they want to do. But that's kind of half the fun of it. Is, I mean, I get frustrated even just making modules sometimes. Like, what the hell did I do, and why doesn't this work? And then you'll fix it. And then you turn it in, and then James emails me and says, yeah, these 3 things are mistakes. Oh, crap. Okay, let me fix that.
Yeah, I hear he's pretty good about that.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's really helpful, too. That's good. All right, well, good. Theory, any final questions or say on your end?
You're talking to me as if I actually understood half of what y'all talked about.
Well,
no,
it is a lot. It's a lot. But I mean, as a person who doesn't do this every day, was there anything that you wanted to ask, or that totally just threw you off, and you're like, I don't even fucking know what you meant, and can we re-go over that, or are you good? You're like, I'm out. I gotta call it out.
It's not that bad. No, I mean, like you said, I think every one of us has tried to use HTML to like make a little web page back in high school. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of similar. You got to keep the tags all following each other into the same group, and they kind of back up. But I think
How dare you? High school was 10 years before HTML.
Well, not for me. Okay.
I was using basic language on like a TRS-80 Model 1 in high school. That's what I had.
I don't know what that is. You're so
old.
It's
a Radio Shack computer. There used to be a company called Radio Shack, and you would go in there and buy a battery, and they'd have to have your phone number. It was fun. That's, if you're really old, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, you're right. Everybody's dabbled on, try to make their own website, or at least at the very least gone to, like GoDaddy or GeoCities way back when, or any place that hosts websites, and tried to scramble something together. So this is just the same idea. This is you making commands that tell Fantasy Grounds what to do. And there's all kinds of reference materials and people to help you to figure out how to do it. So if you want to do it, you can do it. That's my main point. And Boffin, you're right. Trash 80s were the shit at the time. They were awesome. It was all there was. It was before IBM computers. All right. Well, I guess. I mean, we could go on and on forever and ever and ever and never stop. But I mean, that's a really good starting point for people. And so I guess we'll wind it up. So, Celestian, thank you. Thank you for coming by. I know that I know that you feel that there's people who are more of an expert at this stuff than you are, or that I am, and I'm certainly not. But I really do appreciate your time and you coming by and at least showing this to people, and we get people pointed in the right direction. So that's super awesome.
Glad to help. Glad to help.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions in the chat, and I think we covered everybody's questions, then we will wrap it up. I did give away the prize, so that's good. Let me go back over to screen and put on the slides for people. So good. So today's Sunday. So tomorrow's Module Creation Monday, which I'll be working on any number of about 18 different things. We'll see what I'm in the mood for. Drop by for that. Wednesday, no game because 4th of July, and people have, like, I don't know, families and children. I don't know. People keep telling me about other people that they love that are in their little tight-knit group. I don't understand any of it. But anyway, no game on Wednesday because of 4th of July. Friday is the game. Saturday is Epic Monster Battles. By the way, guys, if you're watching right now and you want to battle it out on a Saturday in Epic Monster Battles, that could be me versus you. All you have to do is PM me in Discord and tell me you want to play on a Saturday, and we'll do that. We'll get you signed up. And
What
then, of
about
course,
the
next...
Tuesday?
Say that again?
For Tuesday? Or is that
Oh,
next
right.
week?
Thank you. I haven't made a slide for that yet. Yes. Yes, starting on Tuesday, we've got a new show, and this show is called 2 Hour Tuesdays. Tuesdays is spelled Twozday, Tuesday. And what this is very exciting. People don't know about this. Thank you for reminding me. This is Leroon and Furied Fate and I collaborating on module making. Our first one is going to be Unknown Whom 2, the thing that came out trying to make a sequel from 2 years ago that I still haven't done. But how that concerns any viewer is we're going to just be talking and making notes and writing in Word or whatever we're going to do and trying to put all these stories and modules together. And we are going to allow people who are watching to make comments in the chat. And if you have a good idea or if you want to see something happen in our stories or in our adventures or whatever it is we do, you can tell us and we'll incorporate it if it's appropriate. And if this goes well, then we will just do 2 Hour Tuesdays indefinitely, and we'll make all kinds of stuff over the next 50 years. Who knows how long it's going to last. But anyway, that starts Tuesday. That starts July 3rd, so that's 2 days from today. We're starting it. So I'll put that on the schedule and make sure and show up for that, guys. But other than that, I guess I'll go ahead and end the show. So on behalf of our special guest, Celestian, and my co-host, Furied Fate, and the absent other host, Leroon, thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here next time. And until then, good gaming, everyone.